He'd probably pull on the number 7 shirt in most people's best team, but who would he choose to be in his? We asked the cream of football cognoscenti to debate his choice. They all refused, so we got a bunch of loudmouths led by Johnny Vaughan to spout off down the pub instead.
No, I promise you he'll be here. He did say he'd be here. I'm telling you, George Best will be here.
Oh, he won't. You're having a laugh.
It's his local pub. He's got to be here, hasn't he?
Yeah, but how many local pubs has he got?
Well, he's got a local pub with one drink anyway. Speaking of which,
he'll be here.
It's a local pub.
George is coming.
Okay, what is the deal, and what's he done? It's his best 11, isn't it?
George has picked his best 11, all British, no continentals, last 30 or 40 years.
Naturally, no continentals.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be West Ham, would it?
He may have picked the side lads, but he hasn't turned up yet.
Well, we need to kick off without him, won't we?
OK, it's OK, because I have the team. It's not such a disaster. We've got a nice drinky there for him. Let's just crack straight in with it.
Who's in goal then?
Pat Jennings, Big Pat, is between
Big
the
Pat
sticks.
Jennings, yeah. But Jennings did invent the arcing tip over as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Pure Pat Jennings. He was a superb shot stopper.
On the run is Craig. Oh, great save, Jennings.
He did. He just curled round the bar, and you know, you could never do that if you just laid your jackets down on the ground because there was no bar there.
Also, he never wore gloves either, so that's proper goalkeeping for you.
McDonald, Craig. Oh! Craig can't believe it.
On a football thing, in choosing it, he's only really got 4 people to choose from, I reckon. Shilton, Shilts, Clements, Pat Jennings or Neville Southall. Anything outside of that? Nobody else is going to get.
Do you think he's been strangely patriotic to Northern Ireland?
Not even Gordon Banks.
Oh, and Gordon Banks.
Spares for the game. Have you ever seen that advert he did? He did an advert. I swear I saw this at the pictures once, where he's done up. You're not going to.
The oil.
He's done up as an oil filter.
Yeah, you are. It's shocking.
An oil filter is like a goalkeeper. The more it saves, the better it is.
Did he let any oily rags in though? No, he didn't.
A Unipart filter.
OK, so do we think we'd stick with Pat Jennings there?
I would stick with Pat Jennings, but I seem to be the only one, so.
Well, no, I'll stick with him as well, Kev. OK, listen, we're going to move now to the back 4 we've got here. It's odd formation. We've got Stuart Pearce, Mike England, Bobby Moore and George Cohen.
George the Rabbi.
The Rabbi Cohen,
the
of
Rabbi
course.
Cohen, yeah.
Here's Charlton. Oh, Charlton, a beautiful ball to Best, but look at the speed of Cohen. Great fullback is George Cohen.
Don't know much about George Cohen, except that Alf Ramsey rated him as the best fullback.
Did he play for Fulham?
Played for
Fulham,
a long
time. In fact, well...
in fact, he only played for Fulham, didn't he, I think?
That was in his whole career, the whole time he played.
400 games, 37 caps.
Yeah, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because you see the footage of the '66 World Cup and you see all the goals, you don't tend to notice what the right-backs do.
The thing is, well, if you're going to pick George Cohen, there's an argument that you pick Ray Wilson as well, because that was the pairing that really won things for England and did so well for them. So if you are going to think about ditching Pearce out of the side, I think you've got to think about putting Ray Wilson. But then you're starting
bookending your defence. Matching bookends, aren't they?
Difficult to think of other right-backs, though.
But Bobby Moore, that's not controversial, is it?
Oh, no, Moro.
Surely they should have called him the vicar, if they were calling him the rabbi.
You'll never see a better tackle than this. Oh,
it's awesome, isn't it?
The perfect timing.
Thinks quickly, tackles well, no argument on that.
Every schoolboy's dream. Isn't he, though? He's every schoolboy's pin-up. That's why he's the one for me.
You have to have someone in the back 4 who does the pointing.
Bobby Moore was the Michael Caine of football, though, wasn't he? He was the coolest footballer of the 60s.
Tina's not the best dart player in the world, but she enjoys the game while she's waiting for me. After a match, we often meet our wife for a...
Look at the synchro work here. 2 of them.
It's commanded by...
Separated at birth. Look, there. Woof. Oh, superb.
And he's going to hit the bar.
Look, it's a great tackle, isn't it?
Look, but the way thing he's gone to his wife. There you go, love. That's how you throw an 8.
It's not true. Like Mr. and Mrs. Bobby Moore, looking at the local.
And we've got Mike England. Were you surprised at that?
A bit. I mean, he's a tough, uncompromising player, good in the air, strong, but you wouldn't have thought he was George Best's sort of player, to be honest with you.
So why is George chosen? Is he a drinker? Could it be that?
In moves England, he's got hold of it and
If it was Dave Mackay, for example, you'd imagine Best he would go for rather than Mike England. I mean, Mike England's surely only there for his commentator value. His name is England, yet he plays for Wales.
Yeah. He's also got Stuart Pearce there.
Controversial, right?
I think that's a bit controversial. I mean, you know,
except you then ask yourself a question as to who else you put in. Actually, think Kenny Sampson.
Kenny Sampson is superb. Terry Cooper.
Ron
Terry
Harris.
Cooper, you can argue. Not Kenny Sansom.
But Pearce, I'm surprised because Pearce wouldn't be George's best sort of player, I'd imagine.
But it's funny you say that because George actually likes robust players. He liked the idea that the game was about people getting stuck in and kicking each other, and he bemoans the fact there isn't tackling.
He was a real, you know, even when he wasn't captain, he was a real...
But he could really take players. They did that famous
lads.
take out on Sinclair, just completely took him out.
Stuart Pearce doing on Trevor Sinclair what he's been known to do for a long time. He put in a strong challenge.
He's a good enough player. He's hard in the tackle.
Hard.
But beyond that, what more is there to his game?
Didn't he used to have, didn't Pearce used to have the Stranglers always on the Forest team coach?
He wouldn't allow the other players to listen to anything other than the Stranglers or Punk on the team coach. So Luther Vandross was way out of the window. So those long coach lessons, he would literally he'd fight the tapes off anybody's hands. So
you think you can also, but Stuart, when I think of Stuart, I've got to say, I think missed penalty.
You'd think big thighs, missed penalty.
I do.
Yeah. Can he do it for England? He can't.
What was it that Stuart Pearce, when there's in the production of An Evening of Gary Lineker, when you rewrite history, and he scores, and didn't he go and see it?
He went to see it in Nottingham, yeah. And you know, obviously, it's like when Gary Lineker was there. You know, everybody was looking to see what he was thinking. You know, and every time there was a mention of him, people were leaning over there. And you could see the whole audience, the heads.
You were doing it too, though.
Yeah, oh, I guess so. Yeah, but I didn't see it when Pearce was there. But apparently, when it comes to the bit where Pearce misses his penalty in real life, in the play he scores, and everyone's looking at Pearce saying, "Oh, he's going to be really upset now. We're going to go through this penalty." And what he did was this: when it went in, he said, "Pearce has scored." He went. In the middle of the theatre.
Okay, let's go to the middle of the park. Brian Robson, Colin Bell. He's gone for that. Their best his choice.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a midfield that you look and think, who's not there if there's anything else? No Glenn Hoddle, no Liam Brady. Again, he's picking Brian Robson, who's a box-to-box player, full of energy, fit, leads the team well. But
fit's not quite fit. Fit if not injured.
Injured. No, but that's the point. As Kevin says, and I think rightly so, injured.
Hately, good header.
Yeah, all his shoulders gone. All his shoulders gone.
But you see, this is my enduring image of Brian Robson. Exactly that.
Pops right out.
England with a string of draws behind them, and Robson lying down.
As Brian Clough said, the only reason he got injured because he was the only one brave enough to get in there in the first place.
Wilkins is in there, and Robson! What a goal!
He could volley very well. He could volley with the best of them.
It's just as well that he stopped his career when he did, because if you actually follow his injuries, the next injury he was due for was actually spontaneous human combustion.
Oh, yeah, you're right, it was the only one left.
That was the only one. And look at Robson, there he goes, boom!
He did score a few marvellous goals for England, though, and I don't know if Bestie's been a bit Man United-centric about this, because obviously he's Mr Man United, you know, he's the player that's so dear to them up at Old Trafford. Do you think that would have shaped Bestie's selection?
I suppose so. I mean, for so long he did personify Man United, and I think you're right, he's an 80s player. I think what George has tried to do is spread it a little bit. It would have been easy for him to pick all players from his own era, but he'll have seen Robson play, and he was a tremendous influence on Manchester United and an influence on a team as well.
We lifted the FA Cup 3 times as well, which is that's something.
He was a footballing genius because he managed to play football and referee the game at the same time, which is a very difficult thing to do.
And what about Colin Bell? What do we think about that for a selection?
Good pass through the ball.
But he's made George Best's all-time team. Why?
Guilt.
Yeah,
guilt.
We think this is a debt-laden team. There are debts being paid off here. And
does Colin like a drink as well?
There does seem to be a theme developing along that.
Fulham, alcohol and injuries.
Bell! Keegan, series of 1-2s, Bell. 3-0!
But one of Bell's strengths was that he was, like Martin Peters, way ahead of his talent. He was the sort of player that could actually have survived in the modern game, where a lot of those players from the 60s and George Best's era probably couldn't have done.
Technically, it wasn't that much good being 10 years ahead of your time, though, was it, really? Because unless the rest of the players were anywhere near you.
You're arriving in the box in 1975.
Player of the future. Wearing his anti-gravity boots.
OK, let's go up front, and I'll tell you the four. Let's discuss them as a foursome. We've got Bobby Charlton.
Controversial.
Dennis Law. Not that controversial. Robbie Fowler.
That is controversial, yeah.
What? Yeah. And Jimmy Greaves. That's not that controversial.
I would think
he drank a lot, so I can see. Bestie's obviously seen something in Robbie Fowler, hasn't he, there?
You can see things in young players. You don't need to have been around for years and years to see a player who's a real star, and I think he's right about Robbie Fowler.
Well, he's like Jimmy Greaves, great from the off.
It's Robbie Fowler. It's him again. Fowler's there. He scored.
It's odd as well that he hasn't gone for Ryan Giggs there. I mean, he hasn't got anybody. He hasn't got any wingers there at all.
You see Ryan. He's the man that's been sort of put up as the new best. I think this is quite a deliberate thing, isn't it? It's almost George saying he's not.
Of all the players in this team, Robbie Fowler's the only one who hasn't proved it at international level. I'm surprised that George Best is obviously convinced that he will do it. And how can he justify not having Lineker in there?
Or Ian Rush, even.
Or Ian Rush, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that strikes me...
I think Robbie Fowler's got more than Lineker.
He's got potential, but he still hasn't, to me, he hasn't proven it at the top level.
He scored some fantastic goals. So young as well. He shows experience way over his years as well. It's the fact that he is so crafty.
It's Robbie Fowler. It's 3.
But obviously Bestie's seen something, hasn't he?
Bestie, obviously Bestie. He hasn't seen this pub for a while, but he obviously
If you pour it, he will come.
I like having Greaves in that lineup just simply because of that. I read an article he did, an interview, and it was just like a questionnaire, and it said who was the biggest influence on your game. And he actually, this is true, this was in print, he actually put Vladimir Smirnov. And I like the fact that player can look back on his life. It was, you know...
Do you think Greavesy was a cheeky right-wing scamp even then? What a turn this is.
Greaves changing direction so well.
See, that's dribbling, isn't it? That's proper old-fashioned dribbling,
Fabulous goal.
He took his time about goals.
Oh, he scored.
Not frightened of just dribbling it into the back of the net.
There's that game with the dog on the pitch in Chile against Brazil. And the dog comes on the pitch and Greavesy sort of picks it up.
He's on all fours. He almost entered the mind of the dog.
Yeah. The dog comes up and Greaves picks it up. And actually what you don't see is that the dog actually peed on Greaves' shirt.
You can see Jimmy Greaves going like that with his hands, like somebody spilled orange juice on his hands. Like, oh my God!
Call it Jimmy Greaves. Because it's pissed.
Which Garrincha, who was playing for Brazil, thought this was so funny that after the game he went into the stadium and tried to find this dog, found the dog, adopted it, took it home to Brazil and called it Jimmy Greaves. And looked after it forevermore.
Well, they say that every dog has to have his day, and here's one who's going to prove it. Past Garrincha, past Flowers. And it's Jimmy Greaves, the England inside forward, who really knows how to deal with the situation.
Don't take the bracelet off the dog.
But look, you have to have Dennis Law, as my dad says, he scores proper goals. Dennis Law scores proper footballers' goals.
He certainly scored one very proper goal against Manchester United. This really is Dennis Law's finest hour.
Look at that, closing down midfield like they used to those days. Look
at that. But he takes them all on. And,
superb defence all round.
He does everything he can not to score.
Oh, come on, that was clinical.
He doesn't want to score there.
No, he really didn't want to score there. He tried to almost disassociate himself from the ball. It's like, oh, was there a ball just behind me then?
And no elation there at all from Dennis Law.
If you're picking the top 11 international team, then you'd have to go for people like Lineker and Keegan who have proved it at that level.
What I see is people who can nick goals. I mean, you've got Dennis Law, Robbie Fowler, Jimmy Greaves, 3 great people to nick a goal, but I don't see a kind of provider there.
You're going to have to make Charlton drop into midfield.
Yeah, have to play midfield,
yeah.
With his hair.
With his
Or indeed without his hair. Charlton going for a 1-2 and getting it. Oh, what a goal!
During that, we presume he's just mopping up, isn't he? He's just dabbing with a tissue.
We've already mentioned a lot of footballers listen to Luther Vandross, and Stuart Pearce used to listen to Sham 69. Bobby Charlton, the only player that would listen to the shipping forecast before going to any game, depending whether he used the heavy grade hair product.
OK, well, there we have it. That's George's big, fantastic 11 players there. How do you think this team would play together?
I don't think this team would work. It's unbalanced. You've got a very strong back four and you've got 4 natural goal scorers, but you've got no one to give them the ball.
But you'd have a hell of a lot of fun in the bar afterwards.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it now. Loads of people really drunk and Sham 69 on the jukebox.
All stranglers. Well, there you have it then. I was just saying George couldn't turn up, isn't it, really?
Who's going to have his drink?
I don't think any of us should have. I think we should leave it there, really.
Yeah. The ice has melted. OK, so we shall drink with our now empty glasses, sadly.
Holding an empty glass for George, how appropriate.
Absent friends.
George.
Oh, great save, Jennings! But look at the speed of Cohen. Good tackle by Moore.
In moves England, he's got hold of it, he's scored!
Pearce.
Oh, it's in! And Robson! What a goal!
Bell, 3-0.
Fowler's there. It's scored.
Charlton going for a 1-2. Oh, what a goal!
Green. What